It's one of those things that, there's not one like silver bullet magic way of doing that. And that's part of even I talk about in the book. Sometimes it's building relationships that won't come to fruition for several years. That it's talking with other brokers, networking and communicating. The more specific you can get to what you're looking for, the more it's easy for people in those deals to come back and kind of find you. But there's also a lot of intentionality around that. A lot of my deals, and some of the best deals I've done, took maybe 4, 5, 6 years of just reaching out and pinging the people. Hey, I'm interested in buying this. I get into the nitty gritty. Like I go into all like tax records, and then I go and research, being the fact that I used to do a lot of distress. I'd hired some people away from title companies to do like research. And so we do this all in-house. And so we track ownership entities and then start mapping out in a particular market. So, San Antonio is where I'm doing a lot of investment. I've, all the metros of Texas, Milwaukee, Cincinnati, but, now really heavily in San Antonio. And so we'll map out like all the ownership groups, and it may be a different LLC, but it has like the same address. And so what we do is we start mapping out, here Joe Billionaire has this, this billionaire has these, this has that. And what it does is, I call this kind of the mafia rule, is you're going to have typically about 4 or 5 families that do about 80 or 90% of all the commercial real estate deals in the market. But once you're able to identify where they are, you also determine where they're not. And so even though it's a fantastic deal and it may be downtown in the CBD of your market, that group doesn't do hospitality. They don't do retail. They don't do something else. And so naturally people would think, oh, that billionaire does all those deals downtown. Why even compete with them? They have better finances and they can just stroke a check whenever it makes sense. By identifying that, we can find the opportunities. Then I think as far as layering in future growth, because let's be honest, as everybody's chasing down all these deals, what you're trying to do is you're trying to make a future projection of what's going to happen in that market. Trailing data is nice to tell you a story, but what's the next 3, 5, 7, 10 years, depending on your investment horizon, is more important than what has been happening over the last 5 or 10. So then I layer in a lot of infrastructure, bond spend dollars, things that are public records, but like nobody's tracking out like what's the road improvement plans for the city. Well, when the city is putting hundreds of millions or billions of dollars or putting into a new streetcar or putting in a new stadium or putting a new park, those do have returns on investments. And so then I start like building this kind of systematic way of, I see what everybody owns. I see what's kind of maybe the future's kind of heading this direction. And then I start formulating relationships, talking to brokers, talking to some of those property owners and say, hey, I'm interested in buying your building. And what you'll also find is some of these are outliers. Like maybe there's an office building and it's the only one that a family owns in that entire town. They're based in Missouri. They're based somewhere else. And you'd be like, why do they own this office building in, downtown, Shreveport? And then it's having those conversation pieces, reaching out. And now you have the knowledge and data to assess, would they be a seller? And versus that billionaire in town that already has 10 buildings, trying to pick off one of those, it may be a bigger hurdle to achieve. And so then I can focus my efforts on maybe that particular building. I do my due diligence. I start doing research. I start assimilating rents and comps for the areas that I'm really, really focused on. So then when an opportunity presents itself, I can move a lot faster than everyone else.